All right, we should be live streaming now. So if are now you just want to remind everyone in the chat to refresh their pages, then this talk should be visible very soon. I want to say thank you very much for joining our very first talk here at Earth Action Hub. I'm Christina, and I'm part of the organizing committee of Earth Action Hub, and I'll be facilitating the session. So below the live streaming of this video, we have a chat box, and you are free to let us know where you're from, where you're joining us from all over the world. And if you have questions for our presenters today, then you are free to type that in the chat as well, and we'll try to answer a couple of them towards the end of this session. We have 30 minutes in total, so we'll build something nice together. I have Morgan and Nwule from South Africa with us, and thank you so much for doing a presentation here. I just want to leave the floor to you, and and welcome, and thank you again for joining us. Feel free to share your screen when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Christina. Right, here we go. Hopefully all the technology works. Right. Have we got our screen of our opening presentation there?
Yes, I see it.
Indeed. Well, just to start saying thank you very much to Earth Action Hub, and particularly Christina for reaching out to us. Wes has been long-term partners with FEE, going well back over 20 years. And so thank you very much for inviting us to being part of your Earth Action Hub, and one of the first speakers here this evening. And joining me is Bukhle, from our Schools and Youth Division, and I work in our Sustainable Tourism Division. And I'm looking forward to spending the next 15 minutes with you, just telling you a little bit about the Blue Flag South African experience, and particularly the social and ecological value that this voluntary environmental compliance program has achieved here in South Africa, and the tremendous opportunities created for youth and sustainable development and sustainable local action competence inside. So moving right along, just to introduce WESA a little bit. WESA, the Wildlife and Environment Society of South Africa. We're a 95-year young environmental NGO. And just to read our blurb a little bit, we aim to initiate and support high-impact environmental and conservation projects that promote public participation in caring for Earth, which is our motto, and our vision and our mission is to bring more people into caring for the Earth. And WESA, we joined FEE in 2001 when we became an implementer, a national implementer of the Blue Flag program, and later we added Green Key and Eco Schools, Young Forest Environment, and LEAF. So we've got a long and fantastic involvement with FEE and with all the things that come from there. WESA has a number of different arms to it, and tonight I'm really going to be talking about our sustainable tourism arm, and particularly how we've been addressing some of the challenges in South Africa to do with our social issues, unemployment, poverty, and inequality, but how this program has allowed us also to address some quite severe environmental issues. So tourism is both a boon and a bane in that it has a number of positive factors such as job creation and upskilling, and providing incentives for looking after the natural environment in which we depend. But tourism also has a number of negative impacts, and I've listed a number in my presentation here, but really just to highlight two key ones there. And one is the development of your tourism facilities and places of visit in sensitive ecological habitat. And the other one is the pollution, particularly waste and sewage that you get associated with tourism. And remember that your tourists are normally coming in, they're normally creating more waste and using greater resources than your locals might be. And that is a particular concern. Now, WESA, as a 95-year-old organization, has been a long part of our history. We've been involved in advocacy issues and environmental rights, and trying to bring about environmental change and advocating for sustainable development. And a lot of it was in the stick approach, and it really wasn't working. And Wessa looked for a carrot approach to how you improve coastal management. And we found that in FEE's International Blue Flag Marinas and Sustainable Boating Tourism Operators Program. I know it's a long mouthful, but it goes by the short name of Blue Flag. And Blue Flag is one of the world's most recognized voluntary eco-labels. And over 4,500 beaches and marinas and boats in 45 countries are accredited through this program, this eco-label. In South Africa here alone, we've got 18 coastal municipalities that are participating, with 58 beaches, marinas, and boats, with 19 more in various stages of development of joining the program. And it's not easy to qualify for Blue Flag status. Various countries might have grading certifications for tourism. South Africa, we've got the Tourism Grading Council. Your countries, you've probably got a similar type of thing, a 5-star hotel, for instance. How do you qualify for 5-star Blue Flag status? Well, there are 38 stringent criteria that need to be met and maintained, and they are judged every single year. And these criteria, these standards of excellence, are in 4 main categories. The first is environmental education, both the staff and of the public. Environmental management of your sites, whether it's a beach area or a harbor. And it's not just the actual beach or your marina, it's the back of house areas as well. You can't pretend that just the front part is fine when you've got a massive pollution or mismanagement behind you. It's also safety and securities, whether these are lifeguarding or security services, your first aid, your back of house office, your toilet facilities, disabled facilities, recycling. All of these things are part of the criteria. And lastly, which is most important to me as a trained conservationist, is water quality. And that's really the reason why Wessa got involved, is protecting water quality. But let's start a little bit of why operators, why do municipalities and private companies want to get involved in Blue Flag? Well, quite simply, it's around gaining a competitive edge for tourists, for visitors, for clients, and getting their spend. Yes, many of them have got secondary aims, some of which are environmental, others peer recognition. But what Blue Flag does is it draws visitors because of the presence of lifeguards and security, that you've got clean water, that you've got safety facilities, that your operators are operating to high standards of ethical behavior, particularly if it is whale watching boats and such like. And your visitors then are being drawn to these areas, and the outcomes of it are a couple of the following things. First of all, it's high visitor numbers above your competitors, the beach next door, and with it, they bring their spend. And alongside, Blue Flag has resulted in an increase in coastal property values, and that comes about because of improvements in sewage, in safety and infrastructure, and it leads to a confidence, a business confidence for people wanting to invest, whether it's residential or commercial or recreational. And all of these things mean for municipalities an increase in rates and taxes. And that's predominantly why, at least here in South Africa, our operators are municipalities, because they're trying to draw additional foot traffic and with their spend to come. One of the other tremendous outcomes of it, where Blue Flag creates pockets of success, and national government is then being able to see that and go, right, we'll invest further, we'll provide additional staff, we'll provide additional coastal protection schemes, additional support to municipalities to deal with their sewage problems that have a huge impact on water quality in the areas, not just in the sea, but also in your rivers and things which feed into your sea. And particularly here in South Africa, Blue Flag has meant a righting of some of our past wrongs. Particularly, we had the apartheid in the past, and Blue Flag has promoted the inclusivity of areas along racial demographics, but also fantastically around creating or enabling access for disabled people. In the photograph here, you can see one of the beach wheelchairs that are on many of our Blue Flag beaches, which Wessa has been promoting, and it really has brought about some fundamental changes. But, you know, beaches are not just about places for families to go and enjoy themselves. They actually also have a great value in their own right as venues, whether it is for music concerts or heritage festivals, or things like international sand building competitions, or surfing, or soccer. they have value, and Blue Flag, and because of the standards that are maintained at those beaches, have drawn in a lot of these sort of events. Just to name the Ironman competition, which take place at Port Elizabeth Beach, that one event over one weekend is worth 105 million rand. And it's come about because of Blue Flag and the increased environmental standards that Blue Flag has generated. And that's why WESA is involved in Blue Flag. As an environmental organization, we're trying to protect water quality. We're trying to ensure that pollution is is addressed, that you don't have pollution going in, because particularly sewage systems, drain water systems are properly managed. And that has been brought about through voluntary compliance on behalf of your municipalities. Just to give you a classic example of what Blue Flag has done is that often municipalities will say, look, we can't deal with sewage issues. We can't afford to deal with sewage bills. We can't afford to upgrade our sewage infrastructure because we've got other competing social needs. In the case of Ramsgate Beach, which lost their Blue Flag status a number of years ago, there just happened to be an economic study that was being done around about the same time. And the municipality there had said, listen, we can't afford to put in new sewage infrastructure. We're just going to have to suck it up, or we're going to lose the Blue Flag. But that economic survey showed that that Blue Flag was worth an extra 90 million rand per annum to that small town. And that was reason enough for the municipality to change their mind, invest heavily to the tune of 6 million rand to redo and rebuild the entire sewage infrastructure, because the economics spoke for it itself. Further to that, local and national government have really supported the program, supported municipalities that are endeavoring to deal with the environmental issues. And that's been through heavy investment of job creation, youth job creation schemes, as well as supporting municipalities dealing with their pollution and waste management and stormwater issues. Another key component of this program has been the ancillary investments that municipalities and operators have made into their areas in order to meet the 38 standards of excellence. And this has included improving access, dealing with the rehabilitation of eroded coastal areas, getting rid of alien infestations along their coastal areas. And already in South Africa, we've seen a lot of coastal damage through sea level rise, increased storm damage. And this program has been encouraging and helping municipalities come up with sustainable solutions to coastal erosion problems. And it's also addressed environmental and beach safety education. And that's particularly where WESA's forte is, whether it's the training of staff, municipal staff and operating staff, general public awareness or signage that's happened on beaches. It's brought about fundamental changes in these areas. At this point, I'd like to hand you over to Mbukle, who's going to just talk a little bit about how this program has boosted women and youth job creation.
Okay, so as Morgan had said, there's a stringent criteria that needs to be met, right? So this necessitates a whole lot more human capital at the Blue Flag beaches and also at the Green Flag establishments. These establishments are your hotels, your hospitality industry. So we find that in comparison to a non-Blue Flag carrying establishments, there tends to be like 2 or 3 times more staff that's employed there. And as Morgan had said, inclusivity is a thing for us. So there's a nice mix of skilled and semi-skilled individuals as well as youth. These youth come together to sort of help encourage environmental education. They come in as tourism ambassadors as well. As I've said, it's a mix of skilled and semi-skilled people. So this sort of creates an environment where skill share can happen at Blue Flag operator level. I, alongside 599 other youth, am a proud beneficiary of the Blue Flag. I was in the tourism Blue Flag learnership last year, and my experience there was amazing. I mean, I know that we had COVID and things became a little bit difficult, but all in all, these flags have contributed to over 65% females being employed and the 600 youth in both urban and rural environments. So during the year of the learnership, we're placed in host institutions as well as in the beaches for practical work. This is if you're under blue flags, and if you're under green flag, you are in the hospitality industry. So throughout the year, we received accredited training in tourism guiding, occupational health and safety, amongst other trainings that WESA also provides. It was a great opportunity because at the beach, you had your own KPI, and at the host institution, you also had a KPI there. So you can imagine how intense that was. So there was mentoring and career pathing. This was in the form of Google Classrooms after the COVID pandemic had hit us. So we were put into Google Classrooms and Zoom platforms where we learned how to mute and unmute ourselves. Amongst our career pathing, Morgan and Cindy, who spoke earlier, were some of our mentors. So this was a great experience. In these classrooms, you were encouraged to sort of start thinking about life beyond the program, because it's a 12-month program, but you need to start thinking life beyond that. And considering the situation with COVID and the tourism industry being hit so hard, we started learning how to develop our business acumen. We were also, I just want to go back to the fact that there were 200 youth that was from rural areas. So computer literacy is sort of a thing there. So this was also something that we started to familiarize ourselves with. At the end of the program, some of the participants were absorbed by their tourism hosts, me, and others exited and they actually went to start their own business in the tourism sector or in the environmental sector. So yeah. So as I've said, we do encourage people to take local actions. In South Africa, you've heard from some of the things that Morgan has said, that we appreciate the blue flag and the green key flag because we've seen how much it's done for us as a country. So we don't want to let that go in vain. So on a day-to-day basis, we try to encourage people to be responsible travelers. So a couple of things can be done in order to do that. Things that are as simple as familiarizing yourself with the actual international and local eco labels for sustainable choices. That's the blue flag, the green flag, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with fair trade. We've also got MSC in South Africa and SASI. They will help you make the right choices in selection of the fish that you eat, for example. We also try to encourage people to travel local, support SMMEs in the area over large multinationals. This will sort of drive the local economy. So if you're planning a visit, just take a second and ask yourself, is this place actually accredited by a respected individual third party? So we've got other platforms, advisory platforms that you can also use. You've got your TripAdvisor, Hello Peter that you can tap into and sort of get a feel of the establishment that you are trying to go to. That's where we wrap up. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to speak today. And if you have any questions for Morgan or myself, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both of you. Perfect. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, and we do still have 12 minutes, so that's excellent. Maybe just I would like to ask a question first, just because I'm curious. How you, Nuvule, how did you get involved with the program from the beginning? How did you hear about it? And yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I am pursuing a BSc in environmental science, and I liked to call myself an avid traveler post-COVID, pre-COVID, I mean. So I found the learnership through the WESA platform because I was looking into WESA as a place where I would possibly work in the future on completion of my studies. Yeah. And I mean, it bridged the two worlds, which was incredible.
And I mean, I know it's a 12-month program, right? Is there like a key learning outcome that you could share? I don't know, from past 6 months, or 12 months, sorry, that you really think that you would like to share? I mean, if it's possible, even.
I think I learned to think, if that's a thing, you know. But yeah, it was more that, and I think that it's made me a little bit more considerate. It's made me a little more aware of things that are generally happening in life. You know, this is outside of career and all of that, but as an individual, as a person, it's also taught me to Morgan likes owls, you know. You know, so it's also taught me to start having an interest in things outside of the norm and explore the environment in that way. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, maybe we can try a few questions from the chat. One of the first ones is, how can youth support the Blue Flag activities? If you can share any examples of that.
Sorry, we just a bit of noise outside here, just to hear. I'm seeing a question in the chat. Says, when it comes to financially, how has Blue Flag helped countries which has been implemented? Is that what you said on the side?
No, but feel free to also answer that question. That's completely fine.
Certainly, Blue Flag has attracted in a greater share of tourists. So South Africa, for instance, is competing for against all of the rest of Africa to get the share of the African tourism trade. And by having Blue Flag, which demonstrate that we deals with a number of tourism fears, particularly if you're going to go to an area, is it going to be safe to drink the water? Are you not going to get mugged where you are? Is it a safe place to be? And Blue Flag provides a kind of a quality assurance. And we've known from doing visitor surveys that tourists have selected to come to Africa, South Africa, over other African countries because of the presence of Blue Flag. And they plan their visits around South Africa using Blue Flag as an indicator of kind of safe places to be. Blue Flag in itself, because it is costly to run, you know, it requires additional staff, additional maintenance things, generates its own stream of economies as well. But it's a feedback loop. By getting more visitors coming in, greater spend, municipalities get that in as rates and taxes, they can spend more on staffing and infrastructure. So it's almost kind of like a bit of a self-fulfilling entity. And then certainly national governments have come in and seen Blue Flag is a success story. The municipalities that are now running them are now creating these pockets of excellence, and therefore it's worthwhile investing into those areas because good things are happening and they can build on them. So all of that contributes to, you know, the sort of financial build in an area. And that's just looking at the money sense. If you start putting the rands and cents value to the ecological good and the social good that you're achieving in those areas, I mean, that's incredible. You know, just whether, yes, you're investing money into a sewage system, but you're keeping a river clean, you're keeping a sea clean, you're doing all those things. You're investing in people, you're looking at long-term impacts, not just on them, but all the members of their families that they support and develop around.
Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned that you also have women as part of this skills building program. Can you maybe say a little bit more about why it's important to actually have especially women in the program?
Well, just to handle it from a nuts and bolts side of things, in South Africa, like most countries, our demographics are skewed in terms of female. But nearly all of our government programs, development programs, are trying to address the inequalities in the workplaces. So yes, we've got targets to meet on the side of things. Some of the types of works that we do on Blue Flag beaches, for instance, are more suited for women to actually do. Yeah, in particularly some of the environmental education work that we do, you often find that women have are more presentable, particularly with working with younger people, with youth and such like. So, but maybe you got some things to add then. Bukla, you are a woman.
I mean, I totally echo you, Morgan, there. I think it's that. I've seen when we, you know, when women tend to be a little bit softer. I mean, I know Morgan is a softie. She's such a softie. But in terms of like environmental education and stuff, we do tend to be a little bit more keen to working with learners. So it's like even with this presentation, when we were discussing it, it was like, oh, I went through it and I was like, it needs a female touch, you know. It needs a female touch. So a female touch always sort of, you know.
So now I'm curious, what was the female touch that you
personality?
You know, that at sort of my level, you bring in the stats and the nuts and the bolts and things, and the work abroad, and particularly around the youth aspects and some of the issues there. So yeah, and what's important about this Blue Flag program and everything it's achieving is it's got to its macro level issues, and it's feeding into the bigger global change that Blue Flag is making across the world, and how it's encouraging municipalities and operators to really voluntarily to look after the environments. And I think in a lot of environmentalists and conservationists experiences where you've got people voluntarily engaging and taking ownership and making it their own, the environmental impacts tend to be a lot better thought out, implemented, and with a lot more sustainability, as opposed to, listen, municipality, you have to, so they will do it and then walk away with it. But when people have invested through their own will and their own passion, they will continue to work on it on the side. And this is why, just even within the Blue Flag South African experience, so many of the Blue Flag beach managers and operators who've been involved in this program, because they've seen the benefits at a personal level, at a professional working level, at a municipal and a bigger local economy and national impact, have been heavily invested for a number of years. Some of them, I go back more than 12 years working with Blue Flag in this country. Many of our beach managers have mirrored that length of time in the program, because it's developed that level of value for them.
Thank you so much. There was also another question in the chat about like how youth can support the Blue Flag activities. Have you any ideas of how that could work? I mean, as a visitor of a beach, already there you're helping in some way, because you were actively maybe choosing a Blue Flag beach over another one. But is there any other way that the youth could get involved?
Certainly, I think first of all, it's a mindset, and it is all about choices. And I always emphasize it's a choice to make. And in some cases, you'll go to an area and you can't make a choice in places, but just being conscious about the choices that you make, in that you're choosing an area with better environmental management, you're choosing a hotel or a backpackers that you're staying at, or an Airbnb that are putting their environmental credentials front and center and actually living up to them. Choosing operators that have got to small things like recycling, because you can see they're making a difference. Using companies that you can clearly see are investing in their youth and in their local environment. And some of that, sometimes it's difficult to see that, but sometimes, you know, the companies themselves are advertising, we are investing in this area. This is how we're doing things. And youth being conscious of that and seeking that, and constantly looking as, what am I doing? What kind of impact am I having on the planet in the local, into the local environment? And I think keeping that as a mindset, and encouraging other people around you. And, you know, Wes is about encouraging people to care for the earth. So it's not about just me caring for the earth or the booklet caring. It's about encouraging other people to do so. And for a youth to be now undertaking these sort of actions, responsible, sustainable actions, having their friends and their family members, seeing them undertake that, and without, you know, being a martyr about it, but just providing a growth and a consciousness towards these things by explaining why they're doing it. And, you know, that really does help.
That's a very good point. And yeah, and maybe I can also add that, like, asking questions like, how is your environmental policy? Like, what do you do for the environment? Already, if you have, as a traveler, if you're able to ask your hotel about that, then it will spark some kind of, oh, okay, our visitors are conscious and curious about this, so maybe we also need to do better. So it is this kind of, yeah, even these small things that are really important to help drive change.
You know, it might not be that first person going into a backpackers and saying, listen, I noticed that you don't have any recycling going on here. Are you guys not thinking about it? And they might say, well, no, we can't. Or no, we haven't really thought about it. But the more and more people asking it, will start putting on a good social pressure to bring about these local changes. And all of it helps. Every small bit does help.
All right, we're actually, we're at the end of the session. So I want to say thank you so much, Morgan and Nobule, for having this presentation and joining us here today. It was really, really great to hear about your work. Thank you also to the audience for questions or for being active, for checking in. If you didn't catch the whole session, then it's also available on YouTube, so don't worry. I'm actually facilitating the next session in 15 minutes. It will be together it will be a conversation together with the CEO of Foundation for Environmental Education and two young people from Canada and one from India. So if anyone of the audience would like to join that, just head over to the conversation stage. For now, I'm gonna end this session again with a huge thank you for joining us, and yeah, that's it for now.
Thank you so much for involving us, and really appreciate it. And in our presentation, my email address is there, and if any members of the audience would like to contact me further, if I can't answer your question, I'll put you in touch with Nobukle or others who can help you as well. Thank you so much for being part of this.